We're here, 12 beers of Christmas, but instead of a beer today, we have 2 meads, compliments of Don Osborn. Don Osborn, you're giving yourself a present today, aren't you?
You know, these things that are 17 years old and 11 years old, they're not going to drink themselves. You just have to get to a point where you're like, okay, let's try it. Let's give it a try.
So we have 2 jalapeno meads that Don Osborn made in 2005 and then another in 2011. So the older one will be 20 years old in just a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
We just cracked them open. We've talked about them. We have an opinion. Do you want to kind of tell any little backstory of like how even did you come up with very early in your brewing career? You're like, I'm going to do this.
So I started brewing in 2001, and I think maybe even within the first year or two I made a mead, but that long ago it was common thought that you have to wait at least a year for it to be drinkable, and that kind of was the case. The 2005 was my third attempt, and I had a recipe from Chris England, and I had an approach that he said, if you want to make a mead and you want it to turn out, follow these steps. And I did, and it did turn out, and the mead was, the straight mead was nice. I did probably a little raspberry. I did 1 gallon jalapeno. I called it third time's a charm mead because it actually worked. And the 2000, I think that was the one, yes it was. I made a raspberry, like a gallon of raspberry, entered that into the mash out, and actually got some good scores, 40, 41, and 45. Did not place, and I also don't know what I was doing with mead, but it got really good remarks.
That just says something though about that set of scores not placing. There's so many good mead makers
right,
here, how high, anywho.
Yeah, so then, same type of thing in 2011, I made a mead, and I probably did a gallon of jalapeno. Both of these were around 11-15 or OG, and then fermented down, and then they also were back sweetened, but I wasn't micromanaging the amount. And in my notes, we were just looking, it's like, well, I put 1 gallon, 1 or 2 pounds of honey into some water and dissolved it, and put that into the carboy, and then racked the mead into that to sweeten it, and it was just kind of a hodgepodge.
Instead of a little bit taste,
right.
You're like, I think 2 pounds sounds good.
Right, yeah. But what's amazing to me is both of these still have jalapeno character, and the 2005, maybe mostly in the finish, you still actually get a little bit of flavor and a little bit of heat.
Right. I was noting, before you even drink them in the nose, the 05, a little cream sherry, kind of a little honey, so maybe a little oxidation, but not to a detriment. But then the 11, you still get,
Aroma.
It almost borders on kind of being roasty. I know these aren't roasted, but because jalapenos often go in kind of those kinds of food, I think it's kind of psyching me out.
Green jalapeno, pepper, spice, what a jalapeno is, you can smell it.
Almost like when you are dicing it and you can smell them. They don't make your eyes bleed like onions do, but there is an aroma kind of that wafts up.
The effect of tasting it is similar in both, as far as the level of heat, I think, and the flavor. And it just kind of comes in. It must be a sensory thing with your tongue that's in the back of the finish is when I get the flavor, not in the front of the mouth. But the 11 still has some aroma. I mean, I didn't know if these would even be very good. I expected them not to be terrible, but I'm finding them kind of enjoyable.
The 11, kind of a little contrary to what you just said, objectively for me, I do get, this lingers sweet from start to finish, then there's this little heat. This takes a while to really get thick and sweet on my palate, because I feel like that pepper is actually doing pretty solid work from the very beginning. In the middle, it's still kind of fending off the sweet, and then at the end is when it's sweet and hot. Maybe. This is very nice.
And that could be a result of it being 6 years younger.
Yeah,
I mean, these are still really old, and I'm sure they were more impactful much longer ago.
It wouldn't surprise nobody, probably, to say that of these 2, I like the 11.
Yeah, I think it's probably
more
better.
of a jalapeno mead. It's got things going on.
I can't even see it. How do I get it?
Oh, you wake it up this way.
I was just curious. There they are. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Don just wanted y'all to see how pretty they were.
They're so clear too.
Yeah, if you aged something almost 20 years, it's going to clear out finally.
I'm glad you were around to share them with, because I have these 6-ounce antique Coke bottles that I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I could certainly drink a 6-ounce glass of this, but when we get to a point of this rarity, it's nice to just.
How many of these each do you have?
I don't know. There's probably a couple, but I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to look.
Good for
Probably
you.
not a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean, this one definitely is, you can age them longer if you want, but I would say find people who'd appreciate these and kind of get Fowler on this one.
'Tis the season for sharing.
Don Osborn's recipes are always at donosborn.com. We will put the link to his homebrew log, chock full of wonderful recipes over the years. Shout out to Chris England for the original trad mead. Shout out to the judges who gave Don a nice ego boost.
Yeah, Kurt Stock gave me my highest mark, 45. Like, he's such a fantastic mead maker that I was, really honored to get that.
Nice. All right.
Chop for chop.
Brew for brew.
Merry Christmas.